What's up, YouTube? It's Angelo coming at you from Fear the Beard Football Channel. It's been a couple days since I made a video, so, I figured that I needed to kind of pump one out for you. Just kind of got a little busy and everything, and, just got a little caught up. So, but I'm back now. I'm going to be making a video tonight, potentially making one tomorrow. So, I definitely, in my absence did write down a few things. So I got enough content to do a couple videos, but, it's just kind of getting a little busy with my, with other different things around the house. Today's video is going to be my top 5 teams that didn't make the playoffs last year that can make the playoffs in 2020. So, diving right into it, I have the Dallas Cowboys at number 1. They're my top team that I think that can make the playoffs coming into the new season. They went 8-8 last year, and this was a team that, they're just in a weak division, and honestly, it's kind of funny. Them and Philadelphia really just last year got into this little pissing contest to see who could screw themselves over more, and it just turned out that, Philadelphia got it together in the last week and, was able to push into the playoffs. But there was a lot of hype coming in with the Dallas Cowboys last year. We all thought that with them making the playoffs the year before, that they were going to take that next step, and Dak definitely did. My thing was, I think that they tried to make Dak throw a bit too much and didn't play the offense that they need to, and their offense is really that feed Zeke offense. So, that's their MO. I think that's where they win their games. I'm not saying that Dak is not a good quarterback because I think he's a top 10 guy. But, I just think that their offense works better when they're run first. And I feel like they try to pass more. Now, I've not really dove into those stats. This is just my eye test from what I saw. Because, it was a contract year for Dak. And I think that they were just trying to see if he was worth the money. So, but they get Mike McCarthy. I didn't really like Jason Garrett as a head coach. He just exemplified mediocrity. And, bringing in Mike McCarthy, a guy who's already won a Super Bowl, he's worked with both Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre. So, those are some notable names that he can only help Dak, in my opinion. And I think that's what's going to happen. But they have the pieces to do it on offense. They have Ezekiel Elliott, who's a top 5 back. In my opinion, he's top 3. Just depends on, who you are and who you're a fan of, in my opinion, because you might have him ranked higher or whatever. But, I know Cowboy fans most likely think he's the best running back in the NFL. I'm a Panthers fan, so I think that it's Christian McCaffrey. But, to each their own. Anyway, so they have Ezekiel Elliott. They have Amari Cooper and Michael Gallup. So that's, they already have an established, receiving core there. Well, then they add CeeDee Lamb, who you could argue was the best receiver in the draft. It was either going to be him or Jerry Jeudy first off the board for wide receivers. And then on defense, they have ballers. They have Leighton Vander Esch, who in my opinion is the best young linebacker in the NFL. They have DeMarcus Lawrence, who had a down year last year. I think he's going to turn it around and become that 10-plus sack guy that Dallas is used to seeing. They did lose Byron Jones, but they replaced him with Trayvon Diggs. So I like him coming out of Alabama. We know what Alabama produces on the defensive side of the ball. And I think that's going to translate over into the NFL for him. And then they also got a Woozy. I like him. And I'm sorry, I don't know his first name. It's like Chidobe or Chidube, whatever, something like that. It's a very weird first name. But he's a baller at safety, and they have him. And Jeff Heath, he's there, but he's more of a, I like Jeff Heath. He's just one of those guys that just gets the job done. So, I'm a big Jeff Heath fan, actually. I'm sure not a lot of people are. Maybe just Dallas Cowboy fans, but I'm one of those. But yeah, no, they play in such a weak division, we saw last year, it took just 9 wins to win that division. Now, I think Philadelphia is much improved, too, adding, Darius Slay, and then they got some pieces in the draft, too, and then they got a few other guys in free agency. So I think it's going to be a bit harder to win the division, but I think that, Dallas Cowboys are going to be the ones to come out on top. And I think there's just going to be a fire lit, that's going to just piss them off that they regressed and didn't make the playoffs last year. And then Dak is also competing for his, big deal, his big contract extension. And then, they did sign Andy Dalton, which that's only going to push Dak, to play better. And if he doesn't, they have Andy Dalton waiting there. So, whatever happens, I think that they're set, and I think they're primed for a playoff push. And we say this every year, but I think that this is actually the year where you could sit there and say, like, they have Super Bowl aspirations, and they could potentially make it because they finally have a good coach behind them. They haven't had that in quite some time. Moving on to the number 2 team, I have the Chicago Bears. Real quick, I did want to say, though, that I do have the Dallas Cowboys finishing up at around 10-6, 11-5, somewhere in that range. It could be a little bit more, but I'm trying to be a bit frugal here, because that is, that's I haven't really looked at their schedule yet, so I don't really know, but just off the top of my head. But yeah, coming in at number 2, I have the Chicago Bears. I'm on the fence with them because, first of all, they were a quarterback away. So if Mitch Trubisky is their quarterback and he starts doing bad, then Nick Foles has a lot of ground to make up coming in. But I've also been hearing they are in talks with Cam Newton. So we don't know how that's necessarily going to play out. We just don't really know. I don't think they're going to do that just because Nick Foles' contract is so expensive. It's not super bad, but, I don't think they have enough to sit there and pay Mitch Trubisky, Nick Foles, and Cam Newton, because he's going to command somewhere around a $10 million salary, I think, somewhere around there. But this was a team who had the number 1 defense a couple years ago. They still have everybody from that defense. And, they have Allen Robinson, who's, been a good comeback player. They have Anthony Miller, who I think is going to make that next step coming into his 3rd season. He was my favorite receiver coming out of that draft. And, if anybody who knows me, I talk to my brother-in-law a lot, and I told him when I drafted him, I was like, this guy is going to be a stud. So, I'm hoping that investment pays out for me because I have him on my dynasty team. But I just loved watching him, and I think he's going to make that next step and eventually take over the number 1 guy in that offense. Plus, they have a great 2-headed monster with David Montgomery and Tariq Cohen. So, and Matt Nagy is just one of the better offensive minds in the NFL. This is a recipe for success. It's going to be a harder division to compete in with the Packers and the Vikings, and I think the Lions are going to be much improved coming into the year. But, I haven't gotten to their schedule just honestly off the top of my head, so I don't know where I really have them yet. But anyway, no, I think that with adding an extra playoff spot, they're a team that can definitely make that push. It just depends on if they can get good quarterback play. If it's Nick Foles, what Nick Foles are we going to get? Is Mitch Trubisky going to be able to turn it around? What's going to happen with that? That's the big question. If they get it right, they're a playoff team. Moving forward, my number 3 team is the Denver Broncos. And I'm sorry that I have to do this again. I have the Chicago Bears finishing out 10-6. I'm going to try to get better with that on my last 3 picks. I just get so into moving on. But Denver Broncos, they're 7-9 this year, and I'm just going to go on ahead and get this out of the way. I have the Denver Broncos going around 10-6. Somewhere, I haven't done their schedule yet. I have them going 10-6 in my head so far, so we're going to see how that plays out. But they are one of my surprise teams that I think could, potentially win the division. Anyway, not the division. They're in the division with the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs are going to win the division this year. I'm just going to go on ahead and say that. I don't think there's anyone in that division that can really compete with them, at least for that spot. But my big thing with them is let's look at the first 11 games of the season last year for them. They started out 3-8, and they just were not good at all. Their defense was good, but they just could not put points on the board. Well, enter Drew Lock, their rookie quarterback, and he goes and takes them 4-1 the last 5 games. They finish out with a 7-9 record. Well, this is a team that just added A.J. Bouye, one of the top defensive backs in the NFL. They still have Von Miller. They still have Bradley Chubb. And then they brought in a haul of guys on their, draft. I loved what they did in the draft. Also getting Jerry Jeudy, who I think is going to be like an Anquan Bolden, and he's only going to help out Courtland Sutton, who I think is a really good receiver. Maybe not Pro Bowl level, but I think he's going to be like a Tyler Boyd, who, gets better because he has like A.J. Green there with him, and he's going to be a solid number 2 guy. So, and then they also have Phillip Lindsay and Melvin Gordon in the backfield. They have a lot of guys, and their defense is still, it's not what it was when they were in the Super Bowl, but they still have a top 10 defense. They have a team that if their offense is playing better, their defense is top 10 caliber. So, and that's a big reason why they were able to turn it around and have so much success, is because Drew Lock was actually playing really decent. So their defense wasn't constantly on the field. They were more rested. And that has a big thing to do with it. Like the Redskins are actually a really good defensive unit. Their offense is just so bad, and their offensive line is so terrible that like their defense by the fourth quarter, they're just gassed. So, that's a major effect. I'm sure a lot of you people already know it, but I really think that they're going to be a team that can turn it around, go 10-6, and make that playoff push. Like I said, there's an extra playoff slot for each team. Moving on to my number 4 team, I have the Cleveland Browns. They did not do so hot last year. They finished out, I think 6-10, if I'm not mistaken. They did not have a good year at all. And they were hyped last year, just like people are kind of hyping them this year to make the playoffs. Well, there was a lot of noise going on with them last year, and that's a big thing. When you're doing a lot of talking, it's just like with the Carolina Panthers when they won the Super Bowl. Cam Newton came out and was like, hey, if you don't want me to dance when I get in the end zone, don't let me score. And what happened? They did not let him score. Denver shut him down, and the league shut him down the following year. It was painful to watch, but why do you think the Patriots are such a well-run organization, at least during the Tom Brady years? You never heard a peep out of them. I mean, we all remember the famous, we're on to Cincinnati last year. We're on to Cincinnati. We all remember that last year with Bill Belichick. This is when the Cincinnati Bengals were 0-9 last year, and so, you kind of get where I'm alluding at. There's no reason to sit there and be like, we're worried about Cincinnati, we got to focus on them. That's just how the Patriot organization is. You never hear anything from them, and they went on the longest dynasty run in NFL history, something that'll probably never be repeated. But no, I think that they're not as loud as they were last year, so that's a bonus. I think Baker Mayfield can turn it around. I like him. I like his game. I like his attitude. Obviously, they have a really good receiving corp there with Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham. They just signed Austin Hooper. They have David Njoku. Then they also have, Nick Chubb. That offense is going to run through him. They have Kareem Hunt, and they have a solid run defense. So this is a team that if their offense can stay on the field longer, their defense is just going to be better. It's basically the same situation I was talking about with the Denver Broncos. So, if they can put things together, I have them finishing at 10-6 this year. I have them finishing 10-6 now. They could go 11-5, but that's I have them in my predictions finishing out 10-6. I've already done the AFC North, so I know exactly where they're going to stand. Moving on to the 5th and the final team, though, I have, and you guys know who I have the Indianapolis Colts. I've talked to a few different people, obviously not experts, just my friends, because I am not expert level at this point. But, I've talked to my buddy, and he's a huge Phillip Rivers fan, but he's under the impression that Phillip Rivers is going to continue to regress like he did in Los Angeles. I am not, okay? First of all, Indianapolis has a better offensive line than what the Chargers have. Now, I will give the Chargers this. They have ballers on defense. They have Derwin James, they have Melvin Ingram, they have Joey Bosa. They have some guys on defense, and they do have a decent offense. They have good receivers. They had, Melvin Gordon, Justin Jackson, and Austin Eckler last year. Hunter Henry, they have Keenan Allen, and they also have Mike Williams. It's just they don't have an offensive line, and that's a big reason why someone like Eli Manning struggled down the stretch. He just was not protected. So I think he's coming in now, Phillip Rivers is, with a team who's a top 5 offensive line. At one point was the number 1 offensive line the year that the Colts made that playoff push. You know, he comes in with a 3-headed monster in the backfield. I can tell you 2 of the names. I can't remember the guy out of NC State for the life of me right now, but they have Jonathan Taylor and Marlon Mack. Jack Doyle's a very competent tight end. They drafted Michael Pittman. They have T.Y. Hilton. They have Paris Campbell. You know, and then on the defense, they even have ballers. Malik Hooker, Rock Ya-Sin, and then they also have Darius Leonard. So they have guys on their defense. This is a team that, you know, I think they're going to get off to a slow start. So I don't think it's going to be one of those. I think that early on in the season, you guys are going to look, you know, back and be like, oh, he was wrong. But I think they're going to turn it around at the end of the season. In my predictions, I have them starting out the first 10 games going 4-6. And then I have them winning the final 6 games of the season and pushing for the playoffs. Now, I know that sounds like a bit of a stretch, but go and look at their schedule. It gets a lot easier down the stretch. So, you know, that's just my whole entire take on it. But it does really depend on how well Phillip Rivers plays. I just think he's a bit of an upgrade to Jacoby Brissett. Nothing against him. I think he's on par with Andy Dalton as the best backup in the league. But I think that Phillip Rivers is just a little bit better than him. And I think that little tiny bit is what's going to push them over the hump. They were 7-9 last year. I have them 10-6 this year. But that wraps up my video for tonight, guys. I really enjoyed making this. If you haven't already, if you like this video and you haven't already, hit that like, subscribe button, and turn the bell notifications on. All it's going to do is help this channel grow so I can push out better content for you guys, you know. Regardless, though, I enjoy making these videos so much, and I really hope that you guys enjoyed them too. But it's almost dinner time. My lovely wife has made me dinner, so I am going to sign off and go and eat some of the grub that she made for me. Y'all have a great evening.